Well, I'm sorry I'm not there today. My wife is not feeling good, so I'm staying home to watch the kids. But I wanted to make sure that you guys were ready for the test that you'll have on Tuesday. So I'm going to go over everything that's going to be on the test. I would highly suggest that you either have your notes out to add stuff to it or to underline things, make sure you have them, or you can get a separate piece of paper, which might be the easiest. And I'm going to go over all the questions that you'll see on the test. Just a reminder, you're to take the test in a group of 3. It will be closed notes, so you'll want to study and memorize everything. I would suggest that you practice with each other throughout, whether it's online or, in fact, at the end of this, you'll hopefully have about 5 minutes to work together as partners to review some of the stuff that to get you ready for the test. So let's start from the beginning. Hopefully you learn World War I, just like all wars, are ugly and in most cases unnecessary. And I think that's definitely World War I for sure. And from an ugly standpoint, World War I is the ugliest of the wars in world history up until World War II. But World War I, which at the time was called the Great War, was thought to be the war to end all wars. So we're going to start by going over a few things, okay, starting with the 3 causes of World War I. Remember, we talked about 3. On the test, I'm only going to have 2, okay. Before we get into that, let's talk about which groups we have. We have 2 different groups. We have let me get my marker ready. We have the Central Powers, as you can see down here. They're in pink. We have Germany and Austria-Hungary. Now you'll see down here Bulgaria is a country and Turkey is a country. We didn't even talk about them because they just don't do much. And as you know, Austria-Hungary doesn't really help really at all. So pretty much the central power is Germany. So we have Germany, and it's a central power, but that's one of the questions on the test. A lot of students will say that Germany and Russia are together. That is not true. Germans and Russians in World War I and World War II hate each other and fight against each other. So don't put those guys together. We have Germany and Austria-Hungary is a central power. The Allied power, they're calling the Triple Entente, but we call them, they eventually get called the Allied power. Here we have so many countries, but the main ones, England or United Kingdom, France, Russia. And we have another one we know that joins later on, USA. You could also say Italy. So one of the questions is you have to list 3 countries from the Allied powers. And again, Allied powers, that does not involve Germany. Okay, Germany is the central because they are in the middle. So we have the central versus the Allied powers. That's first. Okay. Now remember we talked about causes, and the causes aren't necessarily what starts the war. They're what cause it. In the example we gave, we talked about a barn that was filled with hay. Well, the hay doesn't cause the burn. The hay isn't what starts the fire to burn down the barn. It needs a spark, and we'll talk about the spark later. We know it's the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But the causes, the first cause here is nationalism, okay, which is just pride. It's right here, pride in your country. You need to know that, pride in your country. But the dangerous thing about that, when each country tries to feel like they're the best and they want to prove it, they do it by here building up more military, and then we call that militarism. So, but that's not on the test. Okay, but this is on the test. You need to know nationalism. That is pride in your country. And when each country tries to prove they're the best, they start to divide amongst each other because they feel like they're better than the other country. Okay, the one that's going to be on the test, not imperialism. We're not going to add that on the test. It is going to be alliances. We just went over those here. We have Germany and Austria-Hungary as part of the Central Powers. We know Italy started off, but remember Italy changes teams. A couple other relationships you need to know. Remember Russia and Serbia. We talked about how Serbia was that punk little kid Russia was John Cena, the big tough that everybody was scared of. Then we have a separate alliance over here. We have England and Belgium. England has told Belgium, which Belgium is right there. England has told Belgium, hey, we'll protect you no matter what. Whoever comes to hurt you, will come and get you. And so these alliances are going to cause the domino effect. And so when one country declares war on another country, the other country says, well, we got to go support our friend. Okay, so the two major causes that will be on the test are nationalism, pride in your country, and alliances, which are when countries promise to support each other. What? Then we get to the start of World War I. Those are the causes. What's the spark? What starts it? And we know this guy is Gavrilo Princip. Okay, a couple things about him, if you remember. He's a teenager from a country called Serbia. Okay, you'll want to know that, Serbia. And if you'll remember, I bet you if I'll just ask the question, I'll wait 3 seconds, you all say it out loud. What was the terrorist group that he was a part of? 3, 2, 1, say it out loud. Okay, hopefully you all said the Black Hand. For some reason, kids never forget that. Okay, so he's a member of the Black Hand. Okay, those are the 3 things you need to know about Gavrilo Princip. His name, what country he's from, and the terrorist group. Then we have the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Okay, and we know his wife here is Sophie. You don't need to know her for the test. Remember, they went to a country. This is the key. This is an extra credit question. So I'm even giving you the extra credit question. He went to a country called Bosnia. Okay, there's your extra credit question. They went to Bosnia. And when they went to Bosnia, we know that Gavrilo Princip assassinated both Sophie and the Ferdinand, as you can see in the picture here, after the Archduke was going to visit the hospital, and at the corner that they make a wrong turn, here's a driver, he makes a wrong turn, and it just so happens that Gavrilo Princip is sitting at the corner after eating a what? I'm sure, I hope you all said sandwich. So some of you made the argument, and you kind of went over again and again that World War I started because of sandwich. I wouldn't say that. I would say it just so happened that he had a sandwich, was placed at the corner at the exact moment, at the exact time when he makes the wrong turn. Now, that should not have started a world war, but because of nationalism and especially because of alliances, things get really after, because this guy, this is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, uncle, you don't need to know his name for the test. He asked the German leader, Kaiser Wilhelm, says, hey, well, we gotta protect ourselves here. Serbia, if they keep doing this, it's going to destroy our country and it's going to hurt our alliance with each other. Will you support us in punishing Germany or Austria-Hungary? And they say, yeah, I'll do it no matter what, as it is required by the obligation of our alliance. In other words, because we promised to support you, we will support you no matter what. Now remember, this is called a blank check. Okay, that is on the test, blank check. It is not a real check, but it is a promise to support Austria-Hungary no matter what. Because remember, Austria-Hungary was scared that Serbia would be attacked, would get help from Russia. But now with Germany's help, Austria-Hungary can now go punish Serbia because they know that Germany will help them. Okay, then moving forward. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is an extra credit question. Everybody wants to write this down. This is the U.S. president. Just so happens he is a racist idiot. Okay. He's one of the most racist presidents we've ever had. We don't like him. Okay. In fact, they took his name off almost actually every single building that was ever named after him. So he's racist. We don't really deal with him. But it is an extra credit question. Woodrow Wilson is our. Okay. Then we have this guy. If you remember him, his name Schlieffen Plan, that's on the test. The purpose of the Schlieffen Plan is to, key here, destroy France before Russia is able to fight. Because remember, Germany is, here's the map. Germany is, pretend this kept going, this is Russia. Germany is surrounded on one side, two sides. So they say, hey, let's go destroy France. Once we destroy France, we can make our way over to Russia and fight Russia. And the key to one that you need to know, so you need to know the Schlieffen Plan, you need to know the purpose, which is to beat France before Germany's ready, and you need to know how long did it take. The answer was, how long was it supposed to take? They were supposed to take France in 6 weeks. We know that that did not happen. Okay, and part of the other plan, here's another question, is why did England, Britain, enter the war? Why? Why did they enter the war? Well, remember, going back to alliances, they promised Belgium, if anybody attacks you, we will come and support you. So as soon as the Schlieffen Plan went through Belgium, here comes England, and they're going to come over and fight. We know the Schlieffen Plan was supposed to have this strong right wing. That's the hammer, and it's supposed to surround Paris. Did it work? We know that that was not a success, because leading to the next thing, the Schlieffen Plan fails because of this battle. There was a major battle. It was a turning point battle, and it's called the Battle of the Marne. Battle of the Marne. If you remember, we talked about a gap. You can see here's the army here, here's the army here, and you have this huge, let me change colors, you have this huge gap right here that opens up. So we talked about this is like the hammer, the right wing, and this is the handle. You can see they've completely become separated. So obviously this is a huge gap, a major problem. And this blue line represents the British who attacked the gap. And this forces, as you can see, this red line back here, this forces the Germans to retreat. Now, when they retreat, they're in a problem, because now they lost. The Schlieffen Plan failed. You can see here's Paris. Paris was not taken. And so now they're forced to fight a defensive warfare. Okay? We know it's defensive. And when you fight defensive, the best way to do that in war is to dig down, and we call that trench warfare. So one of the questions will say, what type of warfare was fought after the Battle of the Marne? And the answer would be trench warfare. For the next 4 years, we will fight trench warfare. They'll be in the trenches for 4 straight years. It's going to be a miserable, terrible situation. We begin talking about what life was like in the trenches, how the trenches were organized. We talked about what type of weapons. We talked about the creation of gas and it being used and how terrible it was. We talked about tanks. We talked about grenades, machine guns, no man's land. That might be on. I can't remember if that's on the test, but you should know that one. No man's land. Now remember, the land in between these. Okay, this is about 400 miles. Not that you need to know that, but the land in between is only about a football field in some cases. Some cases, especially down here, it definitely widened up. You had half mile in some cases, but this is where the heavy fighting is going on, right here. This is where World War I mostly takes place, right in this area. As you go further down, it becomes a little less, battles going on. But this is constant, ugly warfare going on for 4 straight years. Then we know the war comes to an end. We know life in the trenches was terrible. We know that we had the front lines. Here's no man's land. I'll say no man's land. Here's the British, and remember they didn't dig very deep. Here's the Germans. They dug nice and deep because they knew they were going to be there for a while. And the war fought for 4 years. Now, I do not have this slide on here. I'm going to add a blank slide, see if it works. Okay, that worked, perfect. Okay, now what about the USA? What about us? Okay, and we just covered that. So a couple things you need to know. And when did we enter the war? Enter, and here's the key, 1917. You need to know that, 1917. So your first date you need to know is 1914. That's when World War I starts. Your second date you need to know, let's look at that, is 1917. That's when USA enters. Now why? Okay, remember it is because of this guy, the Zimmerman telegram. You don't need to know all the details, but remember it was when Germany, was Zimmerman, sent a letter to Mexico and said, hey, go attack America so that America won't come fight us. And then after the war, we're going to give you back Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and I can't remember what other states they were going to get back. So this was a direct attack on America. Finally, America said, okay, we can't deal with this. Okay, so the two things you need to know, what year did we enter, and the Zimmerman telegram. So remember, we only fight for 1 year. We only fight for 1 year. Okay, let me add another page. Okay, because the very last thing is, when did it end? Right, you need to know this date, November 11th, 1918. We just barely covered this. Remember, the best way to remember this is 11/11/18. That's the way I remember it. So 11/11, and that's when World War I ended. And we know this is now our Veterans Day. That's why we have Veterans Day. That's why I want you to memorize it. Most wars, when they end, it's not really a big deal. What day? You don't need to memorize that. But this one's a special one because every year we celebrate Veterans Day, no matter what day of the week, even if it's on Sunday, we still celebrate it on November 11th. And it's all because of that was the end of World War I. They call it the Armistice Day, which means the day that they surrendered. Okay. And the very last question you need to know is after they met to sign the treaty, it's called the Versailles Treaty. Actually, sorry, it's called the Treaty of Versailles, but the order doesn't matter. But this is kind of a tricky word, Versailles. Luckily, that's multiple choice, so you don't need to worry about that. So hopefully you're a little bit more prepared. If there's any extra time, Mrs. Duncan will have you meet with a partner, and you guys can talk about and practice with each other, quiz each other on some of the things that you need to know. Good luck, and we'll see you next time.